The Battle of Stalingrad raged from August 23, 1942 until February 2, 1943, marking one of the most brutal and decisive struggles of the Second World War. As the German forces advanced toward the city in the summer of 1942, war came crashing into the lives of Stalingrad civilians. Evacuation efforts moved far too slowly, barely keeping pace with the rapid German thrust eastward. But because the city bore the name of Joseph Stalin himself, it carried immense symbolic importance. To lose it would have been a devastating blow to Soviet morale. For that reason, the determination to hold Stalingrad was fierce, and the desperation of Soviet resistance became evident from the very start. Inside the city, weapon factories worked frantically. T-34 tanks rolled straight from the production line into battle, often unpainted and, in some cases, without even being fitted with proper gun sights. Every available hand was thrown into the struggle. Men who had not yet been drafted into the Red Army were quickly organized into militia units and sent to the front lines, sometimes without adequate training and often suffering heavy casualties. Women and even children dug trenches, built defensive barricades, and constructed fortifications. Many of them also fought directly, serving as machine gunners, members of artillery crews, scouts, and snipers. The defense of Stalingrad became a collective effort, involving every layer of Soviet society. On September 12th, the first German troops entered the city. They launched their assault directly into the urban center, soon discovering that the streets of Stalingrad offered no easy victory. What followed was savage, close-quarter combat, with soldiers fighting house by house and room by room. The Soviets deliberately established their front lines as close as possible to the Germans. This strategy denied German forces the ability to rely effectively on artillery and airstrikes, which risked hitting their own troops. By forcing the battle into such tight quarters, the Soviets leveled the playing field. The defense of the city was not left to chance. In August, Stalin had dispatched his most trusted commander, Georgy Zhukov, to take charge of the entire southern front. Within Stalingrad itself, General Vasily Chukov assumed command of the 62nd Army. Zhukov began preparing a wider counteroffensive, while Chukov concentrated on keeping the city alive. When asked about his orders, Chukov made his position clear: "We will defend the city or die in the attempt." Reinforcements were ferried across the Volga River under relentless fire. Many never made it to the other side, but enough did to keep portions of the city in Soviet hands. Casualties among the Red Army were staggering, yet German losses were beginning to mount as well. To strengthen Soviet resolve, Stalin had issued Order No. 227 on July 27th, famously known as "Not One Step Back." This directive forbade retreat without direct orders and authorized the use of blocking units, barrier troops positioned behind the front lines who were tasked with preventing desertion. Soldiers who disobeyed could be sent to penal battalions, assignments that were virtually death sentences. The brutality of this policy ensured that the Red Army would hold its ground no matter the cost. The defenders of Stalingrad transformed the ruins into a fortress. They dug a maze of trenches, reinforced crumbling buildings, and even used the city's sewer system to infiltrate German positions. Both sides relied heavily on snipers, and the shattered landscape provided ideal cover. Among the most famous of these was Vasily Zaitsev, who became a legend with 225 confirmed kills by the end of September. His skill and determination became a symbol of the Soviet defense, inspiring both his comrades and the wider Soviet public. By mid-October, the Germans came dangerously close to victory. Yet, despite their relentless assault, the Soviet defenders clung to a narrow strip of the northern factory district. But the very act of pushing so deeply into Stalingrad created new problems for the Axis. Hitler, having already dismissed several generals in the summer after disagreements over strategy, increasingly made command decisions himself. Meanwhile, the onset of winter brought misery to both sides. Tanks broke down in the freezing cold, weapons jammed, and frostbite spread through the ranks. The Red Army, however, had an advantage. Soviet troops were better equipped with quilted jackets and fur hats, while many German soldiers shivered in inadequate clothing. The battle had stretched the German front thin. To compensate, Hitler relied on Allied armies to hold the flanks of the 6th Army and the 4th Panzer Army. Italian, Romanian, and Hungarian units were stationed along these extended lines. But these troops were poorly trained, lacked proper equipment, and had low morale. German commanders pulled more of their strongest units into the city itself, leaving their flanks dangerously exposed. The Soviets quickly identified this weakness and prepared to strike. On November 19, 1942, the Red Army launched a massive offensive north of Stalingrad, smashing into Hungarian positions. The next day, they struck to the south, devastating the Romanian front. Within a week, the two Soviet forces had linked up, completely encircling the German Sixth Army inside Stalingrad. General Friedrich Paulus requested permission to break out while the possibility still existed, but Hitler flatly refused, promising instead that the trapped army would be resupplied by air. The responsibility for the relief effort fell to General Erich von Manstein, one of Germany's most capable commanders. He attempted to break through to Paulus's encircled army, but was forced to retreat just before Christmas. The Luftwaffe's attempt to supply the pocket by air was a disaster. Hundreds of transport aircraft were lost, and the supplies that did get through were nowhere near enough to sustain the trapped army. Shortages of food, ammunition, and fuel grew increasingly desperate. Surrounded and hopelessly outnumbered, the once mighty Sixth Army withered inside the ruins of Stalingrad. By early February 1943, the situation could no longer be sustained. On February 2nd, the last German forces inside the city surrendered. Those scattered, fighting around the outskirts, continued into March. The Battle of Stalingrad had ended in catastrophe for Nazi Germany. The Wehrmacht's losses were staggering, and the damage to both manpower and morale could never be fully repaired. Stalingrad had not only been held but had become the turning point of the Eastern Front, a crushing blow from which Hitler's armies would never truly recover.